Hello, hello.
Hello, everyone.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. We are kicking off the Flutter Festival for the North America Meetup Edition. You're probably seeing a lot of Flutter Festival events happening around the world. This is a big kind of effort that the Flutter community has put together to bring you all awesome content for basically the first couple of months of the year. So this is our contribution to that. Michael and I are the co-organizers for the Denver Flutter Meetup, and we are kicking things off tonight with a presentation on the tips and tricks for forms in Flutter. And then we have also teamed up with Chicago and Atlanta. Chicago's doing a meetup tomorrow night, and Ask Me Anything with Fitz from the Google team, so don't miss that. And then Atlanta on Thursday is doing a presentation on building offline functionality. So definitely be sure to tune in for those and just pay attention to the Flutter Festival tag in Twitter, and you will see all the other awesome events that are happening around the world. And I think this is going to go on until the end of April. So, okay, how about we kick things off? Gonna go ahead and change my layout here. All right, we're gonna talk about tips and tricks for forms in Flutter. My name's Rona Kilmer, and I have been working with Flutter for a couple of years now, probably about 3 at this point. And I recently had to build a complex form that required functionality to work kind of smoothly in mobile. It also needed to work on the web and desktop. And I learned a few things while I was working on this form, and I'm going to share them today. Hopefully they will help some of you all. I'm not an expert on these things, but what I've built for my form seems to be working. So maybe there's better ways to do it, maybe not. I encourage the conversation. You can post questions in the chat, and we do have quite a bit of stuff going on tonight. If we have time, I will try to answer them, but you can always feel free to shoot me any questions on Twitter at RKUnboxed. If I don't know the answer, then I probably know somebody who does know the answer. All right. So let's jump into it. We're going to talk a little bit about validation, keyboard considerations for both mobile and desktop applications, web applications too. Button styling, more than just a typical background color, but how do we handle the states of buttons? We are going to talk about what to do when you have custom form fields and you want to use a validator on them, or you want to have them focus when the user's tabbing through the form. We are going to talk about the focus widget and focus nodes briefly. And we're going to talk about text input formatters, which were brand new to me until just recently. And of course, we're going to raffle off some awesome swag tonight. So hopefully you RSVP. That's the list we're going off of for these prizes. We've got totes, we've got t-shirts, and we even have one of these guys, a plush, if you can see me down in the corner, a Dash plush. And I think it's a big one. I think it's one of the big ones. We'll see. So how it's going to work is we're going to pick names off of Michael's going to handle this. He's going to pick names off of the RSVP list randomly, and then you're going to get a code from us. You're going to have to email us, and then we're going to give you a code, and then you can go redeem that. Google handles shipping it to you and all that good stuff. So anyway, stay tuned for that. But first, let's talk about validation. Validation is basically making sure, checking that the form fields have they meet the requirements, whatever they are that you deem them to be. So you want to validate that the user has entered something at all, that it's not empty. You can validate that the user has only entered specific characters. The sky's the limit. You get to decide. So here's some pseudocode. We start every form with a global key, and here we're defining it, and you're going to pass that global key to your form. And this is key because you use the key to access the current state of the form, so you can do things like validate all of the fields that are within the form. You can also reset the form, you can save the form, but without this key, then you can't actually do that. So make sure that you create this key, pass it in to the form widget, and then you put all of the text form fields or any other kind of fields, form fields that you want inside of this form. And when you call form key.currentState.validate, it's going to run the validator for each of those fields. So text form field is one of those out of the box widgets that you can use inside of your form. And we get this validator property here that you can supply some validation logic. And basically this is a function that's going to run. You get the string value of the text form field. And then you can do something. You can check to see, is the value null? Is it empty? Is it, does it have the correct characters? Whatever you want. This logic can be whatever you want. But you're going to return null if it validates accurately, and you're going to return a string if it doesn't. And the string is your error message. You're going to say things like, hey, this field is required, and the text form field is awesome enough to handle the UI for you. So it will show the error message, it will color it red, things like that. You also have the opportunity to use auto validate mode. You do not have to. In this case, I am using on user interaction as the auto validate mode. That means that this validation logic is not just going to run when you call validate on the form, it's also going to run anytime the user interacts with it. So on every keystroke, this is going to get called. So this comes in handy if you want an error message to go away when the user has satisfied the requirements. And I'll show you an example of that coming up. Next, let's talk about keyboard considerations for forms. For mobile, we want, we are able to, when a user taps into a text field, the keyboard will automatically open. And you want the user to be able to jump to the next form field when they're done without having to close the form field, close the keyboard, open the keyboard. And so we can use something called text input action to add a button to the keyboard. In iOS, this text input action.next actually shows a button that says next. I'm sure you'll notice it next time you're looking at your phone. On Android, it's a little arrow. And what happens is when the user taps on that, it will take them to the next focusable field. So they don't have to worry about closing the keyboard, scrolling, tapping into the text field, opening the keyboard, typing what they want. So that's on mobile. There's also a text input action done. So you might put that on the last element, and that will, if the user taps that, that will close the keyboard for them. So those are a couple of options. There are a bunch of other options for this, for text input action. It's not always consistent across iOS and Android, so just make sure that you check the docs before you implement it. And then we also have this auto focus true, and this works for on mobile and on desktop and the web. And so basically what you're saying here, if you specify true, is that you want, as soon as this text form field is visible, I would like you to focus on it. And when the form field is focused, then the user can immediately start typing into the field. They don't have to tap on it. They don't have to tab over to it. It's automatically focused and they can start typing right away. So nice little feature there. And button styling. So we don't want just a flat button that doesn't do anything, right? We want it to, we have different states, particularly on desktop. We now have a mouse that we're using to interact with our buttons. And we want to be able to not only change the color or whatever styling when the button is focused, so that when people are tabbing through your interface with their keyboard, they know that they are now focused on the button. You might want to also notify people when they're hovering over the button. So there's different styles, particularly if you're coming from the web development world, this will make perfect sense to you. You have to be able to style all the different states of the button, whether it's focused, whether it's hovered, whether it's not hovered. And so we're going to talk about how to do that. It's through something called, we have to use button style on text button. And we're going to use this material state property dot resolve with. And what we pass in here is a function. and we can do whatever we want with that function, but it will receive a set of states for this button. So this function is going to get a set of states, meaning, is it hovered? Is it focused? All of those things, so that you can make a decision based on that. If the button is hovered, make it look like this. If it's not, make it look like that. So anyway, here's just the quick pseudocode so you can see what it looks like, and I will show you an actual example. I'll show you examples for all of those things we just touched on right now. I have put together a demo. It is in GitHub, and I welcome you all to take a look at it, play with it. I have it running here in an Android emulator. Got 3 different forms. We're going to talk about the first one. I also have this running in, this is a Mac OS window here. So I can show you all the different things with the keyboard, how the keyboard works. Okay, so let's start with the emulator. Let's go to example 1. We have simple form. We've got 3 different form fields. I'm not sure if you noticed, but as soon as I went into the form, I'll do it again for you. I didn't touch anything. It just automatically focused on first name. And you can probably guess why. It's because I put autofocus on first name. So that is down here. Autofocus, true. So again, to refresh your memory, I said when this form field becomes visible, please focus it. So that's what happened as soon as the form was loaded and you saw that the keyboard opened. We have a validator here. We are checking, we're getting the value. And if the value is null or it's empty, I want to show the error message field required. If it isn't null and it's not empty, then return null, which means it validated just fine. And we're triggering this validation on when we hit submit. And I'll show you the submit button in a second. The other thing I want to point out is this text input action .next. That is the button right here that I was telling you about. If this was iOS, this would say, literally say the words next. And if I tap it, you can see we really nicely just jump to the next form field. No big deal. You can see we can also focus on the reset button. Now it's not a form field anymore, so we lose the keyboard. If I hit submit, you'll see I have these validators that said that this was required. That's what this is right here. We just called this button when we hit the submit button. And I'll show you the submit button down here. Super simple. I just created a custom form button that takes text and then a callback for when the user presses it. And this is what I sent in. I'm doing a quick null safety check on that current state of the form key. Remember, we talked about that on the first slide. We need a form key, and we're going to call validate on the current state. We're all null safe over here, so we got to check for null. If it's not null, we're good to go. We're going to call the validate right here. And if it doesn't validate, and let me say, I didn't mention this before, validate returns a bool. So it's going to, if it gets nothing but nulls back from all of those text form fields inside the form, then it validated and we're all good. And so it's going to return true. If one of those forms did not validate and we got some error message text to display, it's going to return false. So in this case, I'm saying if it returns false, log out failure and get the hell out of here. If it returns true, then log out success. But this is where you would direct them to another screen or show them a success, screen or something like that. This is just a pseudo form, so I didn't actually complete that. So that's pretty simple validation, but sky's the limit here. You can do whatever you want to determine whether a field is valid for your particular needs. Then I also wanted to show you reset. Reset is a pretty cool feature because it will basically take, it will clear a form field or clear a form out so that all of the form fields go back to their initial value. So I'm going to go ahead and fill this out. And then you can see if I hit reset, and actually let me just go. I'm focused on reset. I'm going to hit reset, and you can see it just brought me right back to the cleared out fields. So this is pretty nice little shortcut if you're using the out of the box widgets. Okay, not sure if you noticed this, but I have a different kind of validation going on with the last name, and let me show that to you because I want to show you that I'm using, for this form field, this is the last name form field, I'm using the auto validate on user interaction here. So this validator is a little more complicated, but just barely. We're checking to make sure that there's actual values in there. If there are, but the value is less than 3, I want to show this error message. I want to say, no, your last name has to be at least 3 characters. This is a nonsensical validation, but just to show you how this works. You can see that I typed, let me reset it real quick. So everything's kosher now. I'm going to start typing my name. And you'll see it's giving me the 3-character minimum error. As soon as I get to 3 characters, it goes away because it ran this validation on every input, every interaction, every keystroke. It will run this validation. And as soon as the requirements are fulfilled, null will be returned and the error message will be removed. Okay, now, last but not least for this example, let me tell you about the buttons, because we talked about all the different states that a button needs to have. And I am actually going to jump over to the Mac OS because we need the hover states. So in this case, again, we auto-focused on the first field. I can tab. All I'm doing is hitting the tab button on my keyboard, and it just automatically jumps me to the next focusable element. And now I'm on reset, and now I'm on submit. Also, I wanted to make sure that hover was covered. So you can see I have my mouse going over the reset, and the background color is changing. You might decide on other styles. This is just bare bones example of how this works. So here's my button, super simple button. I have my button style here, and what I want to do is change the background color. So here's that material state property.resolve with that I told you about, and I'm passing in this function, get color. And this is the function here. It's going to return color. It's going to return the color that we want for the button given the states. All right, so you can see that this function is going to get a set of material states. And in this case, the states that I care about, I am defining here. I care about pressed, hovered, and focused. I want all of these states to have this, to have a green color. Otherwise, I want it to just be blue. I don't want to do anything fancy, right? So what I do, I'm just basically checking here to make sure that if any of the states in the states that I say that I care about, if they exist in this set, then go ahead and return the color green. Otherwise, stick with the theme's value, primary color value. The reason it's important to note that this is a set that you're getting is that a button can have multiple states at once. So in this case, my submit button will get a set. We'll get a set that includes hovered and focused. Reset right now only has a state of not one of these things. I don't know what the default state is. I should look that up. But now it has a state of hovered. I'm not focused on it yet. But if I start tabbing through the form again, now I would get a hovered or a focused state, and we get the green color. So, and then pressed, if I press on it, I can't really demonstrate that, but that would also have that color. Okay, so fairly simple way to determine how to change the color of a button based on its states. And I think we're going to take a quick break and we're going to do a raffle and give away some of this stuff. We're going to give away about half of our prizes, and then we'll do the rest in a bit.
Cool. Thanks, Rona.
Yeah.
That was really, really cool. Nice demo, interesting. So let's do our raffle. So the way we're going to run the raffle is, since we're streaming this out to YouTube, we have a list of everybody who registered, RSVP'd for the event tonight. I have taken all those names, and I'm going to share my screen for a minute. So I've got this little Dart program. Select all of that, copy. And in this, I've got DartPad. So we'll select the default there. Come on. I think I just copied it again. Copy. So here are all the attendees who RSVP'd to our event tonight. And I wrote just a simple little Dart program that it'll go through and it will select some winners for us. Let's see. Mine's, well, there. Oh, isn't that fancy? I just had this working. I think I hit a key here. I'm sorry. Oh, let's see. Isn't that the way demos always go?
Always.
There we go. I don't
Live
know.
coding, folks.
There we go. I hit a key on the keyboard. So here's our random drawing. We're giving away a tote plus 2 stickers. We have 5 winners. Here are the winners for that. And the winner for a Dash cookie cutter plus 2 stickers is Santiago Taco. So the way the raffle is going to go is send us an email to flutterdenver@gmail.com, because we don't have your email address that's associated with these tags, usernames that you've signed in to meet up with. So send us your information and we'll send you back a code that goes out to Google, and they will send you one of these prizes. I'm going to take all of this. So I have a copy of all the winners here. Copy. I'm going to save that in my list over here. But there are our first set of winners. And with that, I will, let's do this. I am going to grab the names here, copy, coming back to StreamYard, stop my screen sharing to get that. We're going to do this. Here's the winner list. So here's a list of the winners.
Yay.
If your name is in that list, you have won one of our raffle prizes. And to claim your prize, send an email to flutterdenver@gmail.com. I've got you on the list. I will respond back and send you the code that goes off to Google to claim your prize.
Cool. Thanks, Michael. All right, let's jump back here. All right, cool, done with that. Now we're going to talk about handling custom form fields next. Up to this point, everything we've done has been with standard form elements, so stuff that you get out of the box with Flutter. But you might find, like I did, that I needed to build a custom form or a custom form element. And so I needed a little bit of help from some other widgets to make sure that I could get things focusable, that I could tab to my new element, and that I could do things like validation with it. And okay, so one of the widgets that can help is this focus widget. We can basically wrap any of the widgets that we create with a focus widget and it will help handle keyboard events and styling changes when the widget is focused. Basically, the focus widget is kind enough to manage focus nodes or a focus node for your widget for you. The focus node is what's really handling that state of your widget, and it has a life cycle, and it's a little bit verbose to deal with focus nodes, and you don't have to if you use the focus widget. So I'll show you an example of where I'm using that. We also might want to have some sort of validation for our custom widget. And in this case, we can wrap it in a form field. The form field gives us the validator. We're familiar with that, right? We can write our custom validator. And then it also gives you a builder. This is where you're going to build your widget. And this builder provides a field state. And this basically tells us whether the field state has an error or not. And then we can do things like adjust style properties here when a field doesn't validate. So up to this point, we've taken advantage of text form fields where they handle the UI for us. They turn things red and it shows the error message underneath the form field. And we don't really have to think about it. We just have to provide an error message if it doesn't validate. But in this case, with my custom widget, I'm going to have to handle it. So I'm going to wrap it in this form field, and then I'm going to handle UI changes based on whether this returns true or not. All right, I'm going to get right to a demo here. Again, this is going to be our second form. Sorry, getting ahead of myself here. Second form, example 2. And actually, I'm going to do it over here. It's a little faster. Okay. So what I did here, we've got our first and last name. These are the standard ones we've been using. No difference there. But I built this custom date selector. I wanted to use the, what is it called? The show date picker. We get this with Flutter. I wanted to show that, but I wanted to have, this border. I wanted that to change when we tab over to it, so you can see that color change and the thickness of the border changed. I have the date, the color of the text here changes. I've got an icon here, and I wanted to be able to control all of that, but I'm not using a standard text form field widget. It's totally custom. So how did I do that? This is my date selector widget. Going to jump straight to the build method. And I am using a focus widget. So I just wrapped this is the widget that I built. I just wrapped it with the focus widget. And I'm using on key event, forgot to mention this earlier, I should have. On key event allows us to listen for changes or key presses on a keyboard. And in this case, I want not only when I click on my date picker, I want that to show the actual calendar, but I also want to be able to tab to it and hit return and have that open up my date picker. And this is important because we need to think about people who are not using a mouse. They might be just using a keyboard. This is an accessibility thing to think about, particularly on desktop when they're using like a full keyboard. So in this case, we're using this on key event. We get the node. This is actually the focus node, though I'm not using it here. And then we get the event. And we're going to listen. We're going to say if the event.logical key equals, and this is where you would put in the keyboard key that you care about. In this case, I care about enter. So if the key press was from the enter key, I want to trigger my date picker, which is this select start date, which I breezed over really quickly up here, but this is the show date picker logic. And I need to return a key event result. In this case, if it's the enter key, I want to show the picker and I want to return that we have handled it. I've done what I need to do. We're done with this logic here. If we don't care about the key press, if it's not enter, let's say they typed in any other key on the keyboard, we don't care about it. So we're just going to return ignored. And this is just basically telling the focus widget that we've done what we've needed to do, carry on. We also get this on focus change, and this is how we know that whether the field is focused or not. And we basically get a bool, focus, true or false. And here's where I am setting some state and changing that border style based on whether we're focused or not. So I have the border style declared up here, the variable. So this is kind of my default border style. And then in the on focus change, I just say, hey, is border style focused? If it is, go ahead and change it to blue with a width of 2. And if it's not, then go use the default, which is a width of 1 and the colors of gray. And I could probably have made this a constant, and I didn't do it. Okay. So that is on focused changed. And I think that's all. Oh, yes. Other thing I want to show you. What if we want to make changes further down in the widget tree? I'm showing you this example. Now we could set a variable and we could do set state up here. I just want to give you another option. We can use a builder. And in this case, I'm using a builder to make sure that we have the correct color for the display text. So select date right here is the display text. And it's blue because we're focused. If I tab away from it, that's not what I meant to do. There we go. If I tab away from it, you can see that it goes to gray text. If I tab back onto it, then it goes to blue text. Okay, so we're going to wrap it in a builder. We're going to set the default to a color of gray. And then we're going to use the focus node for this focus widget. And we need, the reason we're using a builder is because we need context. We need to be able to go up the tree to find the focus. What is focused right now? So we're creating a focus node. We're setting it equal to what's focused in this context. And then we're going to check if the focus node has focus, the text color equals colors blue. And then you can see how we're passing in the text color. So this is one way to make some decisions based on the focused element being apparent. Okay, so that is my custom date selector. I also have this custom dropdown. I built this guy before I knew that there was an out-of-the-box solution for an actual dropdown select. So I don't think this is a widget that you'll find particularly useful in and of itself, but it does allow me to illustrate how I'm using some custom, on how I'm adding validation to a custom element. So you can see if I hit the submit button, this border is red, field required popped up. This is not a text form field that does it for me. This is me having to program that in. So let me show you how I did that. I wrapped this guy in a form field. And that gives me the validator and it gives me the builder with the field state. So the validator, it doesn't matter what the logic is. I'm passing that in so that this dropdown can be reused. So I'm getting it from the widget, but it doesn't really matter. You can use whatever validation you want, just like you saw my prior examples. And then we get this builder where we get the field state. And we have, I'm checking to see if the field state dot has error. And if it does, I want to change the border color to the theme's error color, however that's defined. And I think I set the border color is just set up here in the state somewhere. The default is set up here. So, okay, we've got our builder. We've got the error state changing the color in case there is an error. And then here's the meat of my custom widget. You'll also see that I'm using the focus widget. I wrapped a focus widget around it so that I can use the on key event and so that I can do some changes to the width and stuff like that, some border color stuff based on whether it's focused. So I won't go through that again because that's the same, but I do want to show you how I am doing the error text. This is basically me just throwing a text widget in, throwing some padding and some alignment to make sure it's where I want it to be. And then I'm just doing some checks here before I display it. So I'm using that field state.hasError. Again, we're getting that from up here. The builder passes that in. This guy right here. Whoops. This is getting passed in. So I can use that wherever I want in my widget tree. So I'm down here and I'm saying if it has an error, and I get the error text, and that's the error text that the validator is returning. If that's not null and it's not empty, then I want to show this error text. And that's it. It's that simple. Okay, I would be remiss if I did not talk about focus node. If you need even more control of an element's focus, you can use a focus node. And so far, I've been able to do what I need to do with a focus widget and out of the box features. I just barely used a focus node for that one little example, but mostly I haven't needed to mess with the nodes. But if you need more control, you can totally get what you need with the focus node. Now, I mentioned earlier that focus nodes have a life cycle, and it is on you to manage that life cycle if you're going to use a focus node. So you need to create the focus node, define it in the init state, and then don't forget to dispose it in the, you're going to be using it in a stateful widget. You're going to create the node in the init state, and then you're going to dispose of the node in the dispose method. So don't forget to do that. And it's super simple. A bunch of the out of the box form fields have the ability for you to pass in a focus node. They're already using one behind the scenes. This is just you saying, hey, I'm going to tell you what the focus node is, and then because I want to have access for it later. And one of the reasons you might want to do that, just one example of why you might want a focus node, is because for some logical reason you want to request focus for that field. So something has happened and you want to say, hey, go ahead and focus this field over here, request it, and you have to do that on a node. And I'll give you a really good example of why you might want to do that. And then text input formatters are going to be the last thing I touch on. This one was new to me, but this is a way for you to, it's an additional package that you need to make sure that you import. It's provided by Flutter services. And you can use these to manipulate what is allowed or disallowed in a text input field. So it's really it's just like it sounds. It's filtering text input, or it's formatting text input, either or, however you want to think about it, but it's a good name for it. There are a couple that you get out of the box, and then of course you can do whatever you want and create your own custom formatter if you want. So the examples I'm showing here, there's this digits only one that you get out of the box. This is a way to say, I only want for this text form field, sorry, and I forgot to mention, input formatters is the property, and it's a list of these, and you can add as many as you want. I believe it's processed top down. That's what I've seen. I have not confirmed that, but I'm pretty sure. So for this example, we've said digits only. So that means the user is only going to be able to enter numbers. We have some control over that with the type of keyboard that we choose if for mobile devices, but even then there's other characters that you can enter in even just the number keyboard. I think you can enter a dash and other things. So this digits only really restricts, just the numbers, and will apply to the physical keyboard on desktop and web applications. So if the user types in letters in this case, it will just get ignored. It will not get entered into the text form field. There's also, if you want to go into regex land, then you can use the .deny or .allow options here. .deny is a blacklist. So it's basically saying any pattern, whatever the regex is, whatever that pattern is that you put in there will be denied. It will not, you can't enter that pattern into the input, into the text form field. And then allow is the opposite of that. It allows for a particular pattern. And then my custom formatter, I'm going to show you how you can create your own. You can call it whatever you want and extend text input formatter. And then all you need to do is override this format edit update method. And this method receives the old value and the new value of the text input field. And then you can do whatever filtering logic you want to do here, but you have to return a text editing value, which basically includes a string. This is the final formatted filtered string that you want to output in the UI. And then the selection, this indicates the position of the cursor. So it's a text selection .collapsed because we're not selecting a range of values. We really just want the cursor to be at one spot in that string. And you need to tell the interface, the widget, where to draw the cursor. And so that's the index in the string where you're going to throw the cursor. Okay, let's look at some code. All right, we're going to go to example 3. And example 3. All right, so we're going to show how I'm using a focus node. I am declaring it right here, declaring the variable right here. I'm using late because I'm not going to actually assign it until we get into init state, which is where I'm actually creating the focus node. And then I am disposing it in the dispose method. And then I'm calling it the first name focus node because I'm going to be giving this guy, this first text field, I'm going to be giving this guy the focus node. So here's our text form field, focus node. I'm just passing it in there. Super simple. Now, who cares? This doesn't do anything yet. All I've done is assigned the focus node, but now I want to use it. And I'm going to use it in the reset button. What I want to happen is I'm going to go through my form, and then I'm going to hit reset, and I want it to clear the fields, which it will do. And then I want it to assign the focus to my first name. I want to bring the user back up to the first form field. You might have a form that's like 10 fields long, and they've reset the form, and you want to start them over back at the beginning. So this is one way to do that. And I will show you the reset button here. It's super simple. We're checking. This is what we did before. Does the form key have a current state? If it does, go ahead and reset. That's going to clear the values in the form fields. And then I want to take my focus node and I want to request focus. And let's watch it work. Boom, cleared the fields, brought focus back up to the first name. So that's one reason why you might want to use a focus node. There's a lot more you can do with them. I encourage you to go look at the docs. I've provided a link in a resources slide that will get you there, and you can see some more examples of why you might want a focus node. Okay, now the phone number. Here, this field is my phone number. I am using the text input action next. One of you was asking if the text input action next works on a keyboard that uses numbers only, I think you asked. This is the phone keyboard, and you can see I'm getting the button here. So I would be surprised if that didn't work the same way if you were using just the number keyboard. So here, yeah, you can see I'm using the phone keyboard, and I'm using the text input formatter digits only. So if I try to put anything in here that's not a digit, it's not, you can see I'm trying to click on it. It's not entering. It's not letting me put anything in there. So that's this guy at work out of the box. But then there's also a US number text input formatter. This is a custom formatter, and I totally stole this. And it's from the Flutter gallery, and I will provide a link to it. But I think it's a really good use case for why you might want to use something like this. This is, if you're not familiar, this, what I am typing in right now, this is the format for phone numbers in the United States. One of the ways that you'll see formats, phone numbers displayed. We have parentheses around the first 3 digits, a space, and then 3 digits, a dash, and then 4 digits. I didn't type in any of those. The only thing I typed in here, and I'll actually show you here instead of my keyboard, the only thing I am typing in are numbers. So the formatter, this custom formatter is entering the space, the parentheses, the dash. And I will show you briefly. I'm running out of time, so I'm going to run through this really quick. The link is here. I'm going to give you guys links to all the things, so don't worry about that. But this is my text US number text input formatter. I am extending, like I said, the text input formatter. I am getting the old value. I'm getting the new value. Not even using the old value in this example, just using the new value. And all of this logic, this gets run every time a user enters a digit. So it's going to run through this, in this case, 10 times, right? Because I'm entering 10 different values. So think about that as we're progressing through. We need to track the text length. We need to track the selection index. This is where the cursor is going to be. And then the new text, this is actually what we're going to be creating. The string buffer is going to be the text we're creating to output back into the display. So we're going to do a bunch of checks here. If the text length is greater than or equal to 1, then we know we've got a value, and we need to write a parentheses to my string buffer. And then we need to track the selection index so that we know when we show the UI where to put the cursor. This is kind of hard to explain quickly, so I really recommend that you all go and just play with it. It doesn't take too long when you play with it to figure it out, but it's kind of hard to explain, I think. But we're doing this check. Then we're going to say, okay, we know that we have a value that's greater than 1, that we've got at least 1 digit. We've got a length. What is it greater than or equal to 4? If it is, then we need to add the parentheses and a space. We need to, and actually I should, let me show you this one other thing. Sorry, I said this was a little confusing and I'm not doing it much justice. If the value is greater than or equal to 1, we're going to add the parentheses. So the first, let's pretend we've just entered 1 character. We're going to get the parentheses, and then all of these are going to be false, right? Because we've only entered 1 character. So we're going to skip all of these because it's not greater than 4, it's not greater than 7, it's not greater than 11. And we're going to append the rest. So this is taking a substring of the value and throwing the rest of it in here. So that's where we would get, in this case, sorry, that's not what I wanted to do. Keep losing focus. In this case, we would be returning parentheses 1 and then giving it an index of 3, I believe, 0 or 2. Then I would enter another number. I keep doing that. Enter another number. This thing's going to get run again with the new value. And we're going to start the buffer again. And it basically goes through until all of these, once you've gone through your 10 numbers, you will end up with an output that looks like a phone number. You can see the parentheses being added, the space, the dash, another space, and everything gets appended at the end. Like I said, I definitely encourage you to play with it. But this is just one example. This is the text editing value that gets returned. This logic can be anything you want. I just thought that this one was like a good real world example of why you might want to be filtering and adding characters to a user's output. Okay, I think that is it. And here are some resources for you. The demo repo, the code that we were just looking at with the 3 examples, you can find that here. I'll throw that in the YouTube chat in a second. And then the cookbook, there's in the Flutter docs, there's a bunch of form stuff in there that's really helpful. This gallery demo, this is the one that includes that phone number filter that I think is a really good example. Check that out. Or you can also just check it out in my code repo. It's the same thing. And then there's a lot more information on focus nodes. If you need to get into the dirty details of the minutia there, then check that out. And I'm sorry I ran long, so I don't have time to answer questions. I will be paying attention to what's in the YouTube chat, and I will try to get to those either in the chat or in Twitter later. But for now, we actually have, I think we have Ankita. Let me add her to the stream. Let me stop sharing. We have somebody from Google who's going to come talk to us really quickly, and then we'll do our last raffle. Ankita, are you here?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. How are you?
Awesome. I'm doing good. I was just going through your session as well, and it was so insightful.
Oh, thank you.
This is good. Thank you so much for having me. It's too early in the morning here.
I know. Thank you for getting up for us.
No, that's totally fine. So I'm actually working out of mountains, and this is my background. If people want to have a good morning view, so this is where I'm working from.
Nice.
So I just wanted to share my presentation as well, and I'm not going to take a lot of time.
Yeah, no problem. It should allow you to do it, right?
I'm just
Do we have to give you special permission? I hope not, because we didn't.
I guess not. Yeah.
Oh, it looks like it's doing it. Yeah, I can see it coming up.
Thank you so much. So, hey, folks, and Flutter Festivals is one of the biggest events, I guess. Google has been doing it for so many years now. And I am so glad that I'm here to talk more about Flutter Festivals and the product that we have been leading here. So the product is called the Dev Library. And this is fairly new, I must say, because it's just 6 months old now. And this product is an open source platform where we are actually encouraging external developers like you who can submit their open source projects if they have built anything with Google technologies. Just like we are here talking more about Flutter. So if you have built something with Flutter, any open source project, if you have written anything using Flutter, so you can just go to our website, which is Dev Library, and you can submit your work here. And the beauty of this platform is that not everything that you submit goes on the website. So unlike what you must have seen with other platforms like Medium, Hashnode, Dev.io, who are the leading platforms currently for the content, this is slightly different than that because we add a slight touch of curation as well to this. So now whenever someone submits their work here, we have internal Google experts for each product area who will go through that submission and see if it is relevant, accurate, and if it is adding some quality to our platform. So only after that it gets accepted, and that's how it goes on the site. So I think this is the beauty of this platform. And I would just like to show you some overview here because we are just 6 months old, and even then we have got more than I'm talking about the last year overview, and we've already crossed around 1,000 plus submissions. We have around 500 unique contributors. We have been expanded in 80 plus countries now. And specifically North America, I think, is the biggest developer market currently. And I would love to have more submissions from the North American market. And we have also been actually highlighted in Stack Overflow's newsletter, Google Developers blog, and the contributors who have been accepted on the platform have also shared multiple times on social media as well that, we have been a part of Google's Dev Library. So if I talk about the process to it, because that's fairly simple. So you just have to go to the website, you have to just click the link submit, and it will take you to an external website where you just have to fill the form and get all your details onto it. And once the curation is done, your project gets accepted, it goes on the website. Now, if I want to talk about the benefits that you'll have because of this, is I have seen people also getting accepted to Google Developers Expert Program, and we all know about Google Developers Expert Program because that has been one of the oldest programs we have been running, and the benefits of it. So to become a GDE, you have to have some content online. You have to also be a part of communities, get a lot of programs done. So I think one of the parts that gets with Google's Dev Library as well is that your content, the technical content that you have been writing, if it is accepted and on the website, it adds some bonus points to your GDE profile as well. So I think this is one of the biggest benefits. And the second part why we are encouraging this so much and why I am a part of this team as well is because I'm a big open source enthusiast. I love when people build in public, when they have this entire enthusiasm of building in public, getting feedback in public. And I think some of the greatest projects have come out of open source. So this is one of the main reasons why we are promoting this platform so much, because we want external developers to build more in public. Just share your work. And there are a lot of recognitions as well, because not just, I'm not going to talk about swags because you already know the beauty of swags, what we have, but even the recognition to get on the platform is in itself so valuable. So this is what we have been promoting with Dev Library as well. And if you want to get inspired, so suppose if you're a beginner in Flutter as well, you can just go to the website and you can just check out some of the projects we have in the Flutter product area. You can just filter out by the open source projects or by the blog posts. And you can see plenty of projects we have accepted. These are all quality projects. So you can either start by contributing to them, or you can just fork the repo and start your own project on that. So I think this is it. This is what Dev Library is all about. And I would encourage all the developers who are also attending this Flutter Festival meetup, which is an amazing initiative, Rona and Michael, I must say. So just go through this once and try to figure out if you find something valuable. And also if you have some feedback, always open to it. So thank you so much. This was, I think I took around 10 minutes, but thank you so much.
Thank you. That was great. I didn't know about this project at all, so I am very glad to know about it. Michael, did you know about it?
No, this is the first I'm hearing of it, so this is great.
Yeah, cool. And now it will live on forever in the recorded link, so in the recorded video. So we'll make sure it gets out there to the world.
Thank you so much, Rona and Michael. Thank you so much.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you for coming. We appreciate having you.
Thank you. And kudos to you for this amazing event. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Michael, shall we?
Well, you were
Do our
talking about
final
not
raffle?
taking questions, but I was looking at our question. I think you answered most of the questions because George Ben had asked about links to information. I think you provided all that information, and you're going to update the YouTube site with this information as well. I was just going to quickly input action types. I think you even addressed this with the number keyboard. That was as part of your presentation.
Yep, I think it should work. I mean, I was using the phone keyboard, but if it works on the phone keyboard, it should work on the number keyboard. So
yeah. So for the questions that came in, I think you covered pretty much everything. So I think we're good there. So with that, shall we? Let's see. Banners. Do some swag time. Do our last set of giveaways. So I'll go back once again. I'll share my screen. I kind of like this trippy infinite thing.
Inception.
So what I've done is I've updated our little program here. I've taken out who won the first time around. And we had a late comer. I checked to see if there was any more RSVPs. Thomas did, so I want to be fair, and we'll add Thomas. And now we're going to go for our second drawing. And we will run this to see what kind of winners we've got. So this round is t-shirts and stickers plus the large dash. So these are our winners. Congratulations to everyone. So let's grab this list. Copy. We will come back to StreamYard here. I'll stop sharing my screen so you don't get the infinite. Whatever.
While you're doing that, we have a question from Trevor asking if Flutter Denver plans to have in-person events. Yes, we actually started off with in-person events, and then, of course, COVID came along and messed that up. But we are in talks to get that ramped up again, probably later in the spring or early summer. So stay tuned. We'll definitely be mentioning that in the meetup. So make sure that you're a member of the actual meetup.
Yeah, that is actually my preference. While these are fun and interesting, I like meeting people. I like seeing people face to face. That's where Rona and I met. Actually, we did not start Flutter Denver. It was started by a couple of other guys. We met there and we really liked it. They seemed to move on and want to do other things. So we picked up the baton and we've been doing it for what, almost 2 years now.
Yeah, I think so.
Unfortunately, it's been almost all the COVID years.
I know.
But let's see, we got the raffle time.
Yeah, Thomas, I think you won the dash. I see you being your comment of surprise in the YouTube in the YouTube chat. Yeah.
And
so
once again, remember to claim your prize. The only way we know how to get your email address and get you the code that you can send off to Google to claim your prize is to send us an email at flutterdenver.gmail and say, hey, I was one of your raffle winners. Send an email to us and we'll be glad to send off the code so you can claim your prize.
Yep. Cool. I think that about wraps it up. We have one question about the dev library, which unfortunately I have no answer to that, but I can certainly reach out to Ankita and get the answer for you. So I will do that, and then I can.
Yeah, unfortunately, she's already signed off.
Yeah, but we'll get the answer and I'll tweet it out for you. So follow me at RK Unboxed if you want.
So probably one of the other things you could do before we conclude here is I think it'd be great to highlight the events in Flutter Chicago and Flutter Atlanta over the next 2 nights, because I think they've got some really interesting things.
Yeah, so they both have meetups in the meetup ecosystem. So just look for Flutter Chicago or Flutter Atlanta. Chicago is tomorrow night. They are at 6 p.m. Central Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And they're doing an Ask Me Anything with Fitz from the Google team. And then I think they're also going to have a GDE on Randall Schwartz, if I recall correctly. So that'll definitely be worth checking out. And then Atlanta, Flutter Atlanta has a talk on Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and they are doing a talk on building offline functionality. And that is actually a hybrid event. So they do meet in person. If you happen to be in Atlanta, then go check that out. And but then they're also doing it virtually as well. So you can also watch the stream.
Now you can get more information about their meetups off of the meetup website. And I think you put links in the email that went out to everybody from Flutter Denver tonight. So that's another place. Just click on those links and you get information about those meetups. But I plan on attending, and so maybe I'll see you all there.
Yep. Hope to see you all again at some point. Thanks for coming tonight, and have a great day if you're in the other hemisphere, if you're east of us, and have a great night if you're in North America.
Good night, everyone.